The most formidable man isn't the one who shouts the loudest or demands attention, it's the one who watches in silence, moves like a shadow, and disappears without a trace. There's something deeply unsettling about a man who refuses to seek validation, rejects conformity, and never feels the need to explain himself. That man is the Sigma male, the lone wolf who blends into the background yet lingers in the mind long after he's gone. Here's a chilling truth: the human mind fears the unknown more than anything else. And Sigma males, they are the ultimate unknown. They don't fit neatly into society's predefined roles. They're neither dominant nor submissive, neither attention-seeking nor reclusive. They exist beyond the boundaries of traditional social structures, making them impossible to predict, and that unpredictability is what makes them so unnerving. Without saying a word, they disrupt the unspoken rules that govern human interaction. Their presence alone is enough to shake the confidence of even the most self-assured individuals. They don't engage in power struggles, yet they leave others questioning their own authority. They don't seek to intimidate, yet their quiet detachment sends chills down people's spines. And the most terrifying part, they aren't even aware of the effect they have. So, if you've ever crossed paths with a Sigma male and felt inexplicably uneasy, like you were being studied rather than interacted with, know this: it wasn't a coincidence. It was simply the presence of someone who operates beyond the reach of social expectations, a man whose very existence challenges everything people think they understand. Number 1. They can make people feel insignificant just by listening. Sigma males don't just listen, they absorb. They don't nod absent-mindedly, interrupt to share their own thoughts, or respond just to keep a conversation going. Instead, they remain silent, processing every word with an intensity that most people aren't used to. This kind of listening is rare, and it unnerves people in ways they can't fully explain. Most conversations are filled with surface-level chatter, small talk, exaggerated stories, or recycled opinions meant to impress or entertain. People are used to validation, to others chiming in with agreement or adding their own experiences to keep the exchange flowing. But when they speak to a Sigma male, something different happens. Instead of the usual back and forth, they're met with a penetrating gaze and an unsettling silence, as if their words are being dissected rather than casually received. This forces people to confront a harsh truth: much of what they say holds no real weight. The stories they tell, the opinions they repeat, the self-promotion they slip into conversation, all of it suddenly feels flimsy under the scrutiny of a man who isn't playing along. They start second-guessing their words, wondering if they actually have anything meaningful to say or if they've just been filling the air with noise. What makes this even more unnerving is that Sigmas don't do it on purpose. They aren't trying to belittle anyone or make them feel unimportant. They simply refuse to engage in empty talk, and their lack of reaction makes people realize just how much they rely on external validation. It's not the Sigma male who makes them feel small, it's the realization that without the usual affirmations and social cues, their words don't carry the weight they assumed they did. For some, this is a wake-up call. For others, it's deeply uncomfortable. Either way, once you've spoken to a Sigma, you'll never forget how it felt to have your words truly measured and possibly found lacking. Number 2. They shatter romantic fantasies without effort. Women are drawn to mystery, and Sigma males embody it effortlessly. They don't seek attention, don't overshare, and don't chase validation, which makes them an irresistible puzzle. But this attraction is often built on illusion, not reality. Many women assume that beneath a Sigma's quiet, detached exterior lies a misunderstood genius, a man with deep emotions he just hasn't found the right person to express them to. They believe they can be the one to unlock him, to bring out a side of him no one else has seen. But here's where the fantasy shatters: there is no hidden romantic version of the Sigma male waiting to be revealed. He is exactly as he appears: self-contained, independent, and uninterested in playing the emotional games that women expect. He isn't emotionally broken, waiting for the right woman to heal him. He isn't suppressing some great love story inside him. He simply is. And that realization is devastating for those who believe they were special enough to change him. This isn't intentional on the Sigma's part. He never pretends to be anything other than what he is, but his very nature invites projection. His silence is mistaken for depth, his indifference for emotional trauma, his mystery for hidden passion. When women finally realize that he isn't going to suddenly open up, confess his love, or become the emotionally expressive man they imagined, they feel betrayed not because he misled them, but because they misled themselves. The most brutal part, a Sigma won't try to soften the blow. He won't give a dramatic explanation, won't offer closure, and won't pretend to be something he's not just to spare someone's feelings. He will simply walk away, leaving the woman to process the cold truth on her own. And that truth is this: he was never waiting to be saved. The fantasy existed only in their minds, and without it, all that's left is the unsettling reality that he was never truly theirs to begin with. Number 3. They make people afraid of themselves. Sigma males have an unsettling effect on people not because they try to be mysterious, but because their way of thinking forces others to confront parts of themselves they'd rather ignore. They don't follow the social script, don't seek validation, and don't engage in meaningless interactions. This makes them unpredictable, and unpredictability breeds discomfort. Most people spend their lives playing a role, saying what's expected, following unwritten social rules, and adjusting their behavior to fit in. They chase approval, avoid conflict, and surround themselves with distractions to escape their own insecurities. But when they meet a Sigma male, something shifts. Suddenly, they're faced with someone who doesn't play the game, doesn't seek their approval, and isn't influenced by the usual pressures, and that's terrifying. A Sigma's silence makes people realize how much they rely on noise. His independence makes them question their own need for attachment. His indifference to social hierarchies exposes how much others cling to them for a sense of worth. Without trying, he forces people to ask themselves uncomfortable questions. Why do I care so much about what others think? Why do I feel the need to prove myself? Am I really in control of my own choices, or am I just following a script? Most people don't like those kinds of questions. They prefer to believe they're free, confident, and self-sufficient. But the presence of a Sigma strips away that illusion, revealing the truth. Many are trapped by their own fears, attachments, and insecurities. This realization is so unsettling that instead of facing it, people often project their discomfort onto the Sigma himself, calling him cold, arrogant, or strange. But it's not the Sigma male they fear, it's what he forces them to see about themselves. And that's why he's so terrifying. Number 4. They leave deep psychological scars without malice. Sigma males don't leave people the way they found them. They come into people's lives quietly, without seeking attention, and when they leave, they don't announce it. No grand exit, no dramatic goodbye, just silence. And that silence is what haunts people the most. Unlike others who explain themselves, offer closure, or at least leave some trace of emotion behind, Sigmas vanish without giving anything away. No explanations, no apologies, no parting words to soften the impact. For those who have grown attached, this absence feels like an unsolved riddle, an open wound that never fully heals. The mind fixates on what went wrong, replaying moments, searching for hidden meanings in past conversations, hoping to make sense of something that was never meant to be understood. This effect is especially brutal for those who are drawn to a Sigma's depth and mystery. They felt like they were peeling back layers, getting closer to understanding him, only to realize he was never revealing anything in the first place. He was simply allowing them to project their own desires, their own fantasies, onto him. When he leaves, they aren't just mourning his absence, they're mourning the illusion they created. Even worse, a Sigma's emotional detachment makes it impossible for others to gauge whether they ever truly mattered to him. Was he indifferent all along? Did he care but just never show it? Was it all in their head? This ambiguity keeps people stuck in an endless loop of overanalyzing, second-guessing, and doubting their own perceptions. The scars he leaves aren't from cruelty or intentional manipulation. He never promises anything, never pretends to be something he's not. But his presence has a way of making people crave his attention, and once that presence is gone, the void left behind is impossible to fill. That's the wound he leaves behind, one that time doesn't seem to heal. Number 5. They can make someone feel completely alone in a crowd. A Sigma male can be surrounded by people yet feel like he's in a world of his own. He doesn't engage in the usual social games, doesn't seek attention, and doesn't adjust his personality to fit the crowd. This creates a strange, almost eerie effect. His presence is felt, but his energy is disconnected, like he's there physically but operating on an entirely different frequency. Most people rely on social cues to feel connected: eye contact, shared laughter, mutual validation. But Sigmas don't play into these dynamics. They don't offer the reassuring nods, the predictable responses, or the forced enthusiasm that make interactions feel comfortable. Instead, they remain distant, observing rather than participating, which makes those around them feel an odd sense of isolation even when standing right next to them. It's not that they're unfriendly or hostile. It's just that their detachment creates a contrast so sharp that it exposes how much others crave connection. A Sigma's ability to remain unaffected by group energy forces people to confront an uncomfortable truth. Without the constant validation of social interaction, they feel lost. This realization can be deeply unsettling, especially for those who depend on external approval to feel grounded. In a crowded room, most people seek out engagement to feel included. But with a Sigma, it's different. He doesn't seek, he doesn't react, and he doesn't give off the usual signals of belonging. This makes people feel like they're standing next to a void and energy that refuses to blend in, making them question their own presence in the group. The most unsettling part: Sigmas don't do this on purpose. They aren't trying to make anyone uncomfortable. They simply exist in a way that naturally separates them from the crowd. And that separation is so profound, so effortless, that it makes everyone else feel the absence of connection more than ever before. Number 6. They unknowingly create obsessions. Sigma males don't seek attention. They don't crave validation, don't compete for social dominance, and don't chase approval. And yet, paradoxically, this is precisely what makes them so addictive to others, especially women. The harder they are to read, the more people obsess over decoding them. The less they engage, the more people crave their attention. It's an unconscious game of pursuit, and the Sigma isn't even playing. For most people, attention is a currency. They're used to the idea that if they offer validation, they'll receive it in return. But Sigmas don't operate that way. They don't respond to flattery, don't reward attempts at impressing them, and don't react to social pressure. This leaves people feeling off balance, unsure of where they stand, and that uncertainty is a breeding ground for obsession. Women, in particular, struggle with this because they're accustomed to a predictable range of male behavior. Men who either chase them, try to impress them, or at least offer some form of response. But a Sigma does none of that. His silence is deafening, his presence intriguing yet distant. He remains an enigma, and that enigma plants itself deep in the minds of those who encounter him. The most ironic part: he isn't doing anything intentionally. He isn't trying to manipulate or withhold attention to create desire. He simply exists as he is, uninterested in games, detached from social expectations, and fully self-sufficient. Yet this very indifference triggers something primal in others. They need to know what he's thinking. They need to feel acknowledged by him. They need to break through that impenetrable wall, just to prove they can. But the Sigma male doesn't give in. He remains unmoved, unaffected, and unapologetically distant. And that's why the obsession never fades, because the moment someone believes they're getting close to understanding him, he slips right through their fingers, leaving them chasing shadows that never quite become real. Number 7. They absorb more information than they let on. Sigma males give off an air of detachment, but that's the biggest mistake people make about them. While others are busy trying to be heard, seeking attention, or controlling the conversation, Sigmas remain quiet, watching, analyzing, and piecing together information that most overlook. They don't just hear words, they catch the shifts in tone, the contradictions, the micro-expressions that betray true emotions. They study patterns in behavior, connecting dots others don't even realize exist. This makes them unpredictable. People assume they're indifferent or disengaged, but in reality, they're storing information like a vault, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal it. When they finally speak, it's rarely just to fill space. They cut straight to the truth, sometimes in a way that's so precise, so eerily insightful, that it leaves people stunned. A Sigma might sit through an entire conversation, saying little, yet by the end, he understands everyone in the room better than they understand themselves. He notices who is lying, who is insecure, who is trying too hard to impress, and who is hiding something. People think they're in control of the interaction until the Sigma decides to speak. Then, suddenly, they realize he's been 10 steps ahead the whole time. This is why Sigmas can be so unsettling. They don't just process information at face value. They see beyond words, reading between the lines with an almost unnerving level of accuracy. Someone might think they've successfully deceived or manipulated a Sigma, only to be blindsided when he later exposes every flaw in their logic. And he does it without effort, because he was never ignoring them in the first place. It's not magic, it's not a trick, it's the result of a mind that never stops observing, never stops learning, and never, ever forgets. Number 8. They hold an unnatural level of emotional control. Most people wear their emotions on their sleeve, whether they realize it or not. A smirk of satisfaction, a flash of anger, a slump of disappointment, these little cues reassure others that they're dealing with someone predictable, someone human. But Sigma males don't play by these rules. Their emotional control is so intense, so unnatural, that it unsettles people on a deep, instinctive level. In situations where others would explode in rage, a Sigma remains calm. Where most would panic, he stays composed. Where excitement or joy would be expected, he barely reacts. This isn't an act or some forced attempt at appearing mysterious, it's simply how he operates. He doesn't see the point in emotional outbursts, nor does he feel the need to perform reactions for the sake of social expectations. And that is exactly what makes people so uneasy. When someone expresses anger, they expect a reaction, whether it's submission, retaliation, or negotiation. When someone shares excitement, they anticipate enthusiasm in return. These reactions create a sense of connection, a social rhythm that makes interactions feel natural. But when faced with a Sigma, that rhythm is shattered. His stillness in the face of emotional intensity feels almost alien, as if he's operating on an entirely different wavelength. This unnerves people in ways they can't explain. They start questioning what he's thinking, whether he feels anything at all, or if he's hiding something beneath that unshaken exterior. Some assume he's cold and detached, others suspect he's dangerous because who else could remain that unaffected in situations that would rattle the average person? His unreadable nature forces people to confront an uncomfortable truth: their emotions have no power over him. And that's the scariest part. Most people navigate life by influencing others through emotions: guilt, charm, intimidation, affection. But a Sigma stands outside that system, immune to manipulation, untouched by external. Most people navigate life by influencing others through emotions: guilt, charm, intimidation, affection. But a Sigma stands outside that system, immune to manipulation, untouched by external forces. And when someone realizes they can't control or predict him, it leaves them with a feeling they're not used to: powerlessness. Number 9. They attract chaos without being part of it. Sigma males don't seek chaos, but chaos seems to find them wherever they go. Tension follows not because they're stirring drama, but because their mere presence disrupts the unspoken social order. They don't play by the usual rules of dominance, approval-seeking, or emotional performance, and that throws people off balance. The result: power struggles, shifting group dynamics, and hidden insecurities bubbling to the surface, all without the Sigma lifting a finger. In social settings, most people operate within a predictable structure. There are leaders, followers, social butterflies, and background players. Everyone knows their role. But then the Sigma enters unbothered, indifferent, and uninterested in playing along. He doesn't seek validation, doesn't align himself with any particular group, and doesn't compete for attention. This creates an uncomfortable vacuum, and people don't know how to respond to it. Leaders feel challenged, even though the Sigma isn't challenging them. Social climbers try harder to impress, only to be met with indifference. Followers become confused, sensing a shift in the group dynamic. Women become intrigued, creating subtle tensions that weren't there before. And while all of this is happening, the Sigma remains completely detached, as if none of it concerns him. Because in reality, it doesn't. What makes this effect so powerful is that it's entirely unintentional. He isn't manipulating people or trying to disrupt the balance. He just is. And that's what makes it even more maddening. Unlike those who stir the pot for attention or control, the Sigma remains unaffected by the drama unfolding around him. He doesn't engage, doesn't react, and doesn't get pulled into the chaos. Instead, he watches as the storm builds, knowing full well that he's the only one who won't get caught in it. It's an invisible kind of power, one that frustrates those who rely on social dynamics to feel in control. And the most ironic part, the more they try to pull him in, the more chaos they create among themselves while the Sigma walks away untouched, as if it never involved him in the first place. Number 10. They terrify alphas without engaging them. Alphas are used to being the center of attention. They thrive on dominance, competition, and control, establishing hierarchies where they sit comfortably at the top. Most men either challenge them, submit to them, or seek their approval. But then there's the Sigma male, the one who doesn't play the game at all. And that's what terrifies alphas the most. A Sigma doesn't seek power, yet he isn't weak. He doesn't submit, yet he doesn't challenge either. He simply exists outside the hierarchy, completely unaffected by the social dynamics that define most men. When an alpha encounters a Sigma, he expects the usual response, either deference or competition. But the Sigma gives him nothing, no reaction, no attempt to prove himself, no desire to engage. This complete indifference is something an alpha isn't used to, and it rattles him in a way he can't explain. Alphas thrive on control, but how do you dominate someone who doesn't care? How do you assert authority over a man who doesn't recognize your status? Sigmas don't resist alphas because resistance implies engagement. Instead, they disengage entirely, making the alpha's presence feel irrelevant. And for an alpha whose identity is built on dominance, being ignored is the most destabilizing experience imaginable. This is why Sigmas often unsettle alphas without saying a word. Their calm, detached energy makes the alpha's aggressive posturing look performative, even desperate. The more the alpha tries to assert control, the more ridiculous he seems when faced with a man who simply refuses to react. Others start to notice this imbalance, sensing that the alpha is struggling to establish dominance over someone who doesn't acknowledge the game. In the end, the Sigma doesn't defeat the alpha, he forces the alpha to defeat himself. By not engaging, by refusing to play along, he exposes the alpha's need for validation. And nothing is more terrifying to an alpha than realizing his power means nothing to a man who walks alone. In the end, the power of a Sigma male isn't in what he says or does. It's in what he refuses to do. He doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't seek approval. And in that refusal, he holds a kind of power that no one else can replicate. That's why they disturb, intrigue, and haunt people's thoughts long after they're gone. Because nothing is more powerful than a man who cannot be controlled. If this breakdown of Sigma male psychology hit you differently, if it made you rethink the way you see power, attraction, and human behavior, then you're exactly the kind of person who belongs here. So don't just watch, engage. Hit that subscribe button to dive deeper into the world of Sigma dynamics. Like this video if it opened your eyes. Comment below with your thoughts or your own experiences dealing with Sigmas. And share this with someone who needs to see it. This isn't just a channel, it's a movement. And if you're here, you're already ahead of the game. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.